natural gas. Why is this? Why is it that he says one thing and then does another? Because they are in the grip of the corporate aristocrats, the insurance companies, the pharmaceutical companies, the big agricultural companies, the big chemical companies, the big food companies, in that case, big oil and defense contractors. I'm not held hostage by those people. I'm not part of that system.
She's not a part of the swamp. She's not a swamp creature. Welcome to The Conservative Poet with me, Amania. Happy that you're here today. So we're talking today a very interesting conversation that I want to have. As you all know, Vivek Ramaswamy and Larry Elder were recently on the Breakfast Club. And I decided, well, I wanted to see how the Breakfast Club crew treats other people on their show, being that they treated Vivek Ramaswamy and Larry Elder so poorly and so disgracefully and so disgusting and so disrespectful. So I wanted to see, is this their style? Is this what they do? Because I'd never really listened to the Breakfast Club. And so you ask the universe and the universe will deliver. So it came across my feed that they had an interview with Cornel West, and they also had one with Marianne Williamson. Now, all four of the people we talked about are running for president. Now, Larry Elder and Vivek Ramaswamy are Republicans. They are conservatives. And Marianne Williamson is a Democrat. And Cornel West, I believe he is green, independent, I suppose. And so I wanted to see, how is it that they treated the other people on the show, being that they treated Larry and Vivek the same, disrespectfully. And so I watched the Cornel one. This video is not about Cornel. This one is about Marianne Williamson. But the Cornel one, I will do that one as well, but they did treat him cordially. And so for the Marianne Williamson one, I didn't watch the whole thing. I watched about a minute of it and I says, you know what? I'd like to react to this raw as I watch the whole thing on tape. So I stopped myself from watching it. And so now we're going to watch it. And so, of course, you know, I always have technical difficulties. So this is my second time trying to record this. So thus far, I've watched about 10 minutes of it. So hopefully I can still remember the good zingers that I had. And I pray to God that I don't have to re-record this again, because I seriously might just break this computer. I just might break it.
Morning, everybody. It's DJ NV, Charlemagne the Guy. We are the Breakfast Club. We have Tezlyn Figario joining us on this interview. Tez, what up?
What's going on, family, Breakfast Club family, and Ms. Williamson? Thank you for joining us.
That's right. We got a special guest, Miss Marianne Williamson. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
Always a pleasure to see you.
Well, that's already started on a different note, hasn't it? Miss Figario? Just beaming this morning with good mornings. We're just beaming this morning with good mornings. Good morning, Miss Williamson. Good morning, Miss Williamson. Whoa.
Always a pleasure to see you too. Thank you.
Absolutely. You're running for president again?
Yes, I am.
Why do you want to get back on this stressful grind, Miss Williamson?
Well, I've asked myself that a few times, but it took me a long time to decide whether or not to do it. And ultimately, I felt like I could make a contribution here. I think some things need to be said. I think some things need to be done. And it's as simple as that.
Like what? Like what did you see in Biden's campaign that says, there are some flaws, and this is the reason why I want to run. What's not making you satisfied?
Before I let her start, I just want to throw it out there that these people in their show, from what it seems to me, they have a real problem with white people. Everything is about white supremacy, right? Everything is the white supremacy. It's the white man. In this case, we're going to say the white woman because Marianne Williamson is a white woman. So again, the reason I'm covering this video is I want to show the difference in how they treat the black people that look like them compared to the white supremacists from their point of view. Again, anybody white is a white supremacist. That's how they put it. Use a white supremacist. So how they treat the white supremacist woman and how they treated the black man who are really trying to help black people, dropping truth bombs and knowledge and information and how to help. So I wanted to just throw that out there. Again, the reason for this video is to compare how they really treat this woman compared to how they treated those men of color, as they like to put it.
It's an incremental approach. It's a lack of fundamental economic reform. It's taking an unjust economic system and saying to people, I will try to help you survive an unjust economic system. But in the richest country in the world, why should the economic system be unjust? Mm-hmm. You have 20% of Americans for whom the economy is pretty good. Mm-hmm. But this 20% live on some kind of enchanted economic island surrounded by a vast sea of economic despair. 39% of Americans now report that they have skipped meals to pay their rent. Nice. That's 44% of millennials. We have 1 in 4 Americans who live with medical debt. 64% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck. And 60% of Americans could not afford an unexpected $400 expenditure. So no, things are not okay. Mm-hmm. So the president saying, well, things are okay, I'm going to finish the job. What job? Every other advanced democracy has universal health care, free college tuition, free child care, paid family leave, guaranteed sick pay, and a guaranteed livable wage.
Socialism. Socialism, I think that's what they call it, Miss Williamson. Socialism is what they call it.
We need an economic U-turn in this country. We don't need more little fixes here. Oh, look what I've done for you. Maybe you can survive this. People's lives are falling apart. Mm-hmm. We call it a mental health crisis, but they don't want to look at the deeper systemic causes of all this despair that is literally killing people. Mm.
Do you think that President Biden is too old to run again?
I wouldn't go there. I mean, everybody can see what they see, make their own decisions. I'm not a young woman. I'm 70. I would not be running if I were 80. But at the same time, I don't want to take pot shots, and I don't think the American people don't need me to weigh in on that.
Go ahead, Ted.
How funny, right? She says, I'm 70, but I wouldn't run if I was 80, and Biden is 80. Yeah, nice save, but still, we know people can make their own determinations. Really? We can make our own determinations. We did. We put Trump in, but something happened during election month.
Now, Ms. Williamson, are you still an independent? Would you classify yourself as an independent?
I'm running as a Democrat. But I certainly think of myself as an independent thinker, and we need more Democrats with independent thinking. This codependent relationship with the DNC where they've just decided that it's Biden. We should be, the Democrats claim to be the party that is protecting democracy. So why is it that Marianne Williamson, even Bobby Kennedy, now we're like invisibilized. I heard David Axelrod on television last night say Biden has no challenger, and Anderson Cooper didn't challenge him. We're all supposed to just do whatever they say. So the idea of a democratic process at a time like this when the fascists are literally at the door, that we're not supposed to even be having a real conversation about, like, maybe what should we be presenting as the agenda to the American people in 2024? First of all, to win this election in 2024. More importantly, to repair this country.
I'm glad you used that.
Before Charlemagne jumps in, I want to jump in. So she just said a whole lot there. And Charlemagne, fascism. You know how he likes the word fascism. He asked Larry Elder about fascism. And then Vivek too, fascism. But in any event, she just said a whole lot. She just called out her party saying they are the party of democracy, but yet she, Bobby Kennedy, challengers of Joe Biden, are being silenced. Now, fascism is taking over. So are you saying, Miss Williamson, that your party really is not the party of democracy because you yourself are being shut out? It's fascism. You're being shut out by the bigger power. The power is saying, we want Biden again, 80. Here you are, young, strong, vibrant woman, can hold your sentences together. Nobody's got to wipe your mouth with napkins. You can still sit down. You can still have a conversation. But they're saying, no, you can't compete. You can't be a part of it. You can't run for office. You can't be in this space of this candidacy for the presidency. You can't do it. That's your party. And I'm so glad that she is talking about that and speaking that truth. Good for you. Good for you for saying it.
The word fascist, because I don't know why people are so afraid to use that word. Like,
well, they should look it up in the dictionary, because if you look at the policies of people such as Ron DeSantis in Florida, that's what fascism is.
So, Ms. Williamson, if you are an independent, what do you say then to your critics who are saying, you're splitting the Democrat vote and that this campaign is just, a grifting, an opportunity to get a message out, but how you have a long shot? What is your answer to that to your critics?
Before we let her go, look at her demeanor. We're talking about Tezlyn Figario here. Look at her demeanor. I mean, she is pleasant, I suppose. But she is not the pit bull Figaro that we are used to seeing. This is a different demeanor in total. She is letting the woman talk. She is not jumping in. Well, we're only about 5 minutes into this interview. But wow, I'm very surprised to see how she's behaving. She is really, I guess she's put the pit bull down today. Yeah, she's being very courteous. She even said good morning.
First of all, I'm a Democrat. I said I'm an independent thinker, but no, I'm a Democrat. So you can't be a spoiler if you're running as a Democrat. If somebody says something like Jill Stein, the point was that she was not running as a Democrat. This is a primary. What's the grift? That's really my question. So what's the grift? And if I were just trying to get a message out, first of all, that wouldn't be wrong. But I've done that before. You don't go through this kind of to just get a message out. If I just want to get a message out, I could write a book. I want to help change the system. This country needs an economic U-turn. This country is 6 inches from the cliff in terms of the state of our democracy, the state of our environment, the state of our democracy. So I think that no one should be apologizing for coming in and saying, no, this has got to change, because that system has proven to itself it will not change.
What would be different with you? Because we've heard this from every Democrat politician that we would change this, we change that. And it seems like when they get in office, nothing ever changes.
I mean, I'm not of that system. I don't owe that system anything. When somebody says she's committing political suicide, what political career do I have? I'm not tied to that system. This is why, where are they all? Seriously, you say you hear from them all. I don't hear them saying anything other than, yes, we will go with Biden. So, no. We need a character like a Roosevelt who goes in there and says, right now, look at something like the Willow Project that the president just approved. Oh my God, he had said when he was running, no drilling on federal lands. He has said that he recognizes that climate change is an existential threat to the human race. Meanwhile, he has given more drilling permits than even Trump did. and he has just approved the Willow Project, an $8 billion oil extraction project on the slopes of northern slopes of Alaska. Now he's actually, after that, even after all the outrage expressed, particularly by young people, he has now permitted and approved a project that will have to do with the exportation of liquefied natural gas. Why is this? Why is it that he says one thing and then does another? Because they are in the grip of the corporate aristocrats, the insurance companies, the pharmaceutical companies, the big agricultural companies, the big chemical companies, the big food companies, in that case, big oil and defense contractors. I'm not held hostage by those people. I'm not part of that system.
She's not a part of the swamp. She's not a swamp creature. She's not a DC creature like Joe Biden, who's been in for 50, 60, whatever years it's been. She's not from that system, is what she's saying. So she can come out here and speak against certain things. But she said some interesting things. I didn't hear about these things, that Biden has signed more permits for drilling and so on than President Trump. Now, I find that very hard to believe. Especially with him asking for oil and such on from, foreigners. So I don't know about that. But in any event, her saying it and standing up, if it's a truth, great. If it's, I don't know. But for her to stand up and say these things, I commend her immensely. And I commend her for saying, she didn't call them the swamp creatures, but she called out these organizations that does have these people's feet by the fire, big pharma and, these big oil companies and so on. So for her to say that, it's pretty bold of her, saying that Biden, he belongs to those people. He is tied to them, China and all, he's tied to them, to these people, the wars and the weapon makers and so on. And she says, I got no dogs in that fight. And so it's interesting to hear.
And so Ms. Mary, let's talk a little bit about your policy.
Okay.
One of the things that you stand out for, and I remember that quite well, when you ran the last time, was reparations. And just for clarity, all Black Americans, their only concern is not reparations. We all know that we raise children, we care about education, we care about many things across the board, but you do stand out as a reparationist candidate. Now, the current administration does support HR 40, which would create a study on reparations, and you have been very vocal about that. And so tell us how you feel about the current administration's position on HR 40 and what would be different for you.
So the Biden administration's position on HR 40 is exactly what I'm talking about. Mm-hmm. I knew John Conyers. He was a friend of mine. I raised my daughter in Detroit. John Conyers, if he were here today, he would be rolling his eyes. We don't need another study. Yeah. We don't need another study. So for the Biden administration to say, oh, I support HR 40, which once again, John would say that was then, this is now. Okay, we've moved further. So we support HR 40, but of course Congress has to do it. That is the Biden administration in a nutshell. Kick that can down the road, do something performative where it sounds like, oh, I really support that. It means nothing. We are at a point now where a president who actually supports reparations, which I do simply because I want to see this country heal. A country is a group of individuals. It's run by the same principles. The principle here is you can't have the future you want if you will not clean up the past. Mm-hmm. Simple. It's rather transactional for me. We don't need another study, and we don't need a president who says, but Congress needs to do it. We need to have a president who invites some Black leaders to Camp David for the weekend and says, okay, let's put it on the table and start some negotiation. That is the president I would be, and that's the difference.
Why you?
So my thoughts on what she just went into, reparations, is that reparations will never be enough. They can go to Camp David and put, 1,000 trillion. I don't even know. But they can put whatever on the table and it will never be enough, because The next generation is going to want more money, and then the next one's going to want more money. Everybody's going to want money. It doesn't make you can't do it. And so she said it right. He will kick the can down the road. Right now, they'll dangle it in front of you. Oh, yeah, we got people studying it. Yeah, we're working on it, blacks. We working on your reparations. Your reparations is coming. We got the studying. The scientists are looking into it for us. Once they let us know, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years down the road, and it's just not going to work. Now there's a whole bunch more people in the pie saying, I needs more reparations. I needs money. I needs. It just doesn't work. I just say, get over it. I say, get over it. I mean, reparations. Get over it. And I would argue that reparations has been given for quite some time through all of these social services that they offer to blacks. Specifically, we're talking about, being that it's blacks that's asking for reparations. I would argue that the reparations has been given, maybe not to all Black Americans, because all Black Americans aren't out here chanting, reparations. But the ones that are, is the ones that's already been given. You've been given it through the welfare. You've been given it through Section 8 housing. You've been given it to food stamps. You've been given it to whatever else, stimulus checks. You've been given your reparations. Let it go. Let's move on. Let's roll on down the hill. Let's go to another place. Let's settle it. It's done. It's over. Hundreds of years have gone by. Nobody is suffering now because of slavery. Let's go. Let's move on. That's my argument on reparations. It ain't never gonna work.
But why are you not afraid to speak on an issue like reparations when you know it'll alienate so many other communities that you need?
I'm not a people pleaser political candidate. I'm not here thinking, ooh, say this, say that. I'm doing this, as I said before, to say what I believe needs to be said. It's called leadership. You don't a real leader doesn't just say what you think people want to hear. There's no reason for me to do this except to say what I believe needs to be said. That's what I mean about somebody coming from outside the system. Ooh, you're not supposed to say that. We've done focus groups and that percentage of Americans won't like you. That's the point. You need somebody to whom that is like, so what?
So, Ms. Williamson, let me ask a follow-up on that then, about lip service. So right now there's a California Reparations Task Force. You come from California, correct?
Yeah. Well, I don't live there now, but I've lived many years there in my adult life, yes.
Okay, so have you been involved in the California Task Force?
No, I haven't. No, I haven't lived in California for probably 8 years.
Well, have you been involved in any task force anywhere?
Well, I've designed my own and I've written books about it. I've been writing about reparations, talking about it, doing racial healing circles since the end of the 1990s. And I have a plan for reparations I've run for president twice now, actually, putting that out to the American people, which is, I believe, a megaphone that matters.
Sure, but you just mentioned it's important to have Black leaders at the table to talk about how do we do this. So I just want to be clear, and fair in asking, have you actually been involved with Black leaders?
Yes, I have. I would say the person who has affected my thinking the most is Sandy Darity. Sandy Darity is the first person I talked to, and his wife as well. I feel I was mentored by his information. You know what I'm saying? He was the first person I said, could you please explain this to me? I've read books such as Ta-Nehisi Coates and heard others, but I would say Sandy Darity is the person who is, I think, whose counsel has, I like the way he frames it, and it has meant something to me.
So, there you have it. That was Marianne Williamson, presidential candidate 2024 on the Democrat ticket, on the Democrat side. She talked a lot about being, actually towards the end there, she mentioned it as well. Again, they're pushing her out, keeping her out, the way they did Bernie Sanders back in 2016 when he was running. And so they are the party of democracy, but yet they are silencing the opposition in their own party, from what she's saying. And we know what they're doing with President Trump on the other side. They've got indictment after indictment after indictment after indictment after indictment for Trump. But for them, they're silencing them. What if she really became a threat? Was really grabbing I don't think she's getting anywhere with her campaign. I don't think any of them are. Kennedy seems to be doing a lot of talking. He's got a lot going on. We're seeing him, but most of it, he's being censored. They don't want him. They don't want people talking to him. They don't want him getting his message out there. Again, the party of democracy shutting down their own. But again, look at what they're doing to Trump. Indictments. Trying to lock up their opponent. Fascism, as Charlemagne would say. Fascism is coming at our door. And she said it, we've got fascism at our doorstep. Florida, DeSantis, fascism as our doorstep. Trump, DeSantis, fascism as our doorstep. But it's their party that is silencing people on every level. They're silencing we the people through big tech and the media. They're silencing candidates running in their own races through the media and big tech and telling them that, no, we're not having debates. You can't talk to Joe Biden about anything, about this. No, Joe Biden is the guy. And you just have to handle that. We're not having debates, even though we have candidates to debate. I guess they learned from the last debate. And all of that. So it'll be interesting to see. I need to find out who else is running against Biden. So we've got RFK Jr., Marianne Williamson, and Cornel West. Now, I don't think I'm going to do the Cornel video. I don't want to sit through an hour of it. I really don't. I'll think about doing it. I don't know. But I would be interested to see if the Breakfast Club does an interview with RFK Jr., who is another Democrat candidate. I'd like to see how that conversation goes. So that's going to be it for this video. I thank you all for watching, sharing, and I'm going to have shorts, some of the cliff moments of this interview. And I will probably have a shorter version as well, maybe of a good clipping of it. And so, but it was an interesting talk. But the reason I did this video, as I said, was to compare how Marianne Williamson was treated by the Breakfast Club and how the other candidates, Vivek and Larry Elder, were treated by this crew. And I have to say, it was night and day, this interview style. Tezlyn Figario did push Williamson a little. She had her teeth, her teeth on the bone, but it was very professional, a little bit more professional than what she did with the other two guys. So maybe that's her style. I don't know, but she really needs to work on it because not good at all. But, maybe that's just the way she does things. I don't know, but she was decent today with Marianne Williamson, I have to say. And she was also decent with Cornel West. And from what I understand, they know each other. They have a personal relationship, obviously. So she was pleasant with him. But any event, I think that, again, she was very rude to the other people, and she was not so rude in this taping with Miriam. She even said good morning, and she smiled a whole lot. She even laughed a few times. Wow, who knew Pitbull Figaro could laugh or smile or even say good morning? I'll see y'all in the next video.